Am I a hole for saying in your dreams when my husband told me to apologize to his sister and her husband after they made my son wet himself? Am I the a-hole for telling my dad that I'm not his replacement wife? Hello? I apologize for any mistakes. I recently lost a friend and my emotions are all over the place. My son has ADHD, is hyperactive, and has a medical condition. Days ago was my best friend of 10 years passed away. I asked my husband if he could stay with my 4-year-old son so I could attend the funeral. My husband said yes, but then took him over to his sister and her husband's house to watch him without telling me. At the funeral, I received a text from my sister-in-law telling me to come get my son after he wet himself in her house. I was all kinds of shocked and confused and had many questions in my mind like how the hell my son ended up at sister-in-law's house after I left him with his stepdad. I called my husband, but he didn't answer or call back. I went over there quickly and found my son crying. He was also wet. I asked my sister-in-law and her husband what happened, and they said my son was making so much noise while playing with the kids, so they put him on timeout. After that, he told them he needed the bathroom, but my sister-in-law's husband said he couldn't go to the bathroom while on timeout and denied him access after my son begged, resulting in him peeing right where he was standing. I lost it on her and her husband completely. Her husband for denying my son access to the bathroom, and her for letting this happen and not doing anything about it. Her husband explained that he thought that my son, like any other kid, is old enough to hold it in till timeout was over, which was in 90 minutes according to him. I berated them for treating my son cruelly and denying him a simple request. I asked how could they do this to a child with a condition when they themselves are parents. Sister-in-law got offended. I implied she and her husband were neglectful parents. We argued then. I took my son and went home and my husband wasn't there. He then came home fuming, asking why the hell I berated his sister and her husband after they've done him a favor and watched his stepson for him cause he had an emergency. I asked him if he was okay with the way they treated my son, and he said no. But the way I went about it, I was totally wrong and that I should apologize to them both after insulting them and their parenting skills in their own house when they were doing as a favor. I said no, they did him a favor as I never asked them to watch my son. He said so I had to apologize, but I loudly said, in your dreams. After how my son was treated, he was taken aback and described my behavior as juvenile for refusing to take responsibility for my actions. Things escalated. I had to take my son and go stay with a friend. My husband kept texting stuff like how I was avoiding confrontation and refusing to admit I overstepped, etc. He said he only expects me to come home after I apologized to his sister and brother-in-law.
Hi, I'm a behavior specialist. If that will help you in this argument, and a 90-minute timeout is bananas. It's excessive to the point of being traumatic and counterproductive. Your son should not have been denied access to a bathroom. The healthiest 4-year-old on the planet doesn't have 90 minutes between the full bladder warning signal and eruption. Your in-laws are way out of line in their parenting, and, more importantly, you never consented to have these methods applied to your child. If your husband can't get his head straight about this, your kid is in danger of having the same torturous discipline policies applied in his own home. A short time out for a kid who is outside shrieking like a banshee constantly seems like a good way to take them out of a situation, to let them calm down until they are ready to play in a way that is more respectful to everyone living nearby, if asking them to tone it down a bit hasn't worked. Obviously, this time out was beyond excessive, but as someone who works from home, I was very grateful to the families around me that don't measure fun by how loudly and constantly the kid can scream over the summer. I do have ADHD. People with ADHD, especially children, tend to have non-existent executive functions. That can mean that we have trouble keeping track of and telling time. Unless he's hyperfixated on the quiet of a timeout, or he's daydreaming, the difference between 4 minutes and 5 minutes is going to feel like 6 years. Plus, with ADHD, boredom is a unique sort of torture. Having it 90 minutes with nothing to do as an adult is painful. As a kid, no way. On top of it, even as an adult, I don't always have the best read on my body or what it needs until the need is urgent. As a kid it was much worse and accidents were common. Ops-in-laws were beyond out of line and straight up abusive even for a child without ADHD, and as someone with ADHD with a severe hyperactive component, it was outright torture to make them sit for 90 whole ass minutes and no bathroom use. What did they expect to happen anyways? Most 4-year-olds can't hold it for 90 minutes after saying they have to go. Like really, they should have seen an accident going to happen. This reads as intentional attempt at humiliation. Yeah, as a full-fledged adult with that, I can confirm that this is definitely still a problem. Mind you, I make it to the bathroom before it's a problem, but sometimes it's just barely. Not even on purpose, sometimes my brain just forgets I need to pee! I can't imagine being treated that way that young. Also, volume control is yet another thing I struggle with constantly. Sometimes my boyfriend is like, "Why are you yelling?" And yeah, I was accidentally screaming instead of talking normally now.
Second story. Am I the hey-ho for telling my dad that I'm not his replacement wife? My female 16 mom passed away recently. My brother 14 male and dad are so devastated by this tragic loss, and we are struggling. I've basically found myself handling all chores and work around the house. My brother is too traumatized that he hasn't been talking since the funeral, and my dad hasn't been lifting a finger and do a single thing. He started making requests from cleaning the messy living room, he sleeps on a couch, to picking up dirty laundry, to doing dishes, cooking or ordering food, walking the dogs, vacuuming, doing repairs, mowing the lawn, washing the car since my brother stopped doing it. I'm too exhausted oftentimes. Mom used to do the chores and I used to help, but I have school and after school commitments, and my dad keeps negatively commenting on how I get things done and compare me to mom, like how much time I take to make breakfast, etc. Yesterday, he woke up at 6 a.m., even though he told me to skip school and wanted me to make breakfast. I scrambled eggs and prepared other dishes, then went to wake my brothers up. I set the table, and once Dad sat down, he looks at the scrambled eggs and goes, "What is this? This is not the right way to make scrambled eggs. Your mother used to make perfect scrambled eggs. Did you not learn anything from her at all? How are you supposed to survive if you can't even properly make scrambled eggs?" He looks at my brother and says, "We're doomed." I snapped and loudly tell him, I'm not his replacement wife to expect me to do this and that for him. He looks at me stunned, and my brother rushes out immediately. Dad starts telling me how cruel and insensitive what I just said and how out of line I was. I replied that I was too tired to make the perfect scrambled eggs my mom used to make, and that maybe if he as a parent had tried to learn, we wouldn't be suffering right now. He gets up, throws the towel, and walks out. My aunt came to visit, and when I told her, She went off saying, I should have never said that to my grieving dad, and that I should be ashamed of myself for talking to him like that. Am I the a-hole?
Well, I can say I truly hoped never to hear of someone else that had to experience being a replacement spouse for their parent as I did, but lo and behold, here we are. I can understand why you feel conflicted and frustrated, but please understand that your father is crossing a boundary that isn't healthy for either of you. Instead of learning to love himself and become satisfied in his own life through his stages of grief and healing, he's relied on you in a rather inappropriate fashion. NTA, but I totally get why you feel not necessarily helpless, but not in a great position. Family-related scenarios already are increasingly complex, and for lack of a better descriptor, sticky. This type of thing takes the cake though, as it toes the line between a familial issue, a psychological issue, and generally just putting a child in a position they should not be in. Exactly. Op's dad needs to be a parent to both of his children right now. FFS, the man doesn't work, the least he could do is feed his grieving children and help clean up his house. If it's that big of a deal for his fragile male ego, then he can hire someone to come help out. If he can't afford it, there's this thing called a job that is designed to help people earn money. Whatever he decides, he needs to step up in one way or another and realize his daughter just lost her mother, she didn't suddenly become her. Exactly. Oki's dad needs to be a parent to both of his children right now. FFS, the man doesn't work, the least he could do is feed his grieving children and help clean up his house. If it's that big of a deal for his fragile male ego, then he can hire someone to come help out. If he can't afford it, there's this thing called a job that is designed to help people earn money. Whatever he decides, he needs to step up in one way or another and realize his daughter just lost her mother, she didn't suddenly become her. Let me tell you, what happens when parents do this? You grow up too quickly, and then when you are an adult you realize you weren't given the basic tools you needed to actually be that adult you were expected to be. I completely raised my sister when she was a toddler, 12 years difference, raised by a single mum, and now, 27, I can maintain a house, but PTSD has had me off work for 2 years, I can't look after myself, and I'm missing basic skills such as driving, which my sister has now overlapped me on, and I'm proud as hell of her, but some days I can't help but wish I had a chance. I'd look for a job, and if you have your license, ask to use car. Go school, go to work, save money and get out of there. Everyone's grieving, yet she's expected to do everything and still go to school, and when it's not right or because her time is taken with school, she is in the wrong for not getting it done, or it's not right. NTA. The dead wife didn't infantilize him out of choice, the husband is the one screeching in entitlement as he makes her step into a controlling role as a sexist mommy figure, while he's fully in control. Moms shouldn't be doing all that unpaid labor like that anyway, and also be expected to do emotional labor with no payoff.